So what we've tried to do today is we've tried to help you see that God is real. And there's plenty of evidence that God is real. You need to just be open to the possibility that God is real. In fact, the approach I took in the first century was that it was easier to prove the existence of something than it is to prove the non-existence of something. Now that's if you think about it, a primary scientific principle, that it's easier to prove the existence of something than the non-existence of something. So what I attempted to do in the first century was to prove to myself the existence of God. Once I'd done that, it was a lot easier for me to have a desire to develop a potential relationship. I had to prove to myself that a relationship was even possible, right? I had to get to the idea. See, the concept of God back in my day then was like, it was Yahweh, Jehovah. You might have heard it as, in terms of English translation, Yahweh is the sort of the Jewish sort of form of the word. So I viewed Yahweh or Jehovah as initially the whole society that I grew up in view Yahweh or Jehovah as a very obscure concept of there being this all-powerful creative being, but with very little influence on the individual. Does that make sense? It was sort of like this, it was very divorced from relationship, you know? And so after I realized there was a God and he was real, my feeling was, I've got to have a relationship with that person because it's going to sort out a whole heap of things for me if I do. I'll be able to work out truth. I'll be able to work out what's real and what's not real. So it became very important for me to have that relationship. And what I'm suggesting is, if you can feel about these things and God's nature and qualities, and feel about the potential of God's existence at least, then at least you can start formulating in your own emotions the potential of having a relationship with her. Yeah? That relationship is going to help you determine this. Truth. Because truth on earth is like so mixed with a whole heap of error. It's very hard on earth without some external force influencing you to work out what is true. Truth can be shared from God to you via a mechanism we'll talk a bit more about tomorrow, the mechanism of the human conscience. Truth can be shared with you directly from God. That truth then, now you have a decision about. The decision is, are you going to live in harmony with it? Or you could say, act in harmony with love upon that issue. Or are you just going to ignore it? You are allowed to make that decision. You're allowed to make that choice. Of course, as there is with any choice, there are consequences. The more unlovingly you act or choose to act, the unhappier you will be. And the more lovingly you choose to act, the more proud of yourself and happier you will be. That is a natural consequence of living in harmony with love. So what I would like you to think about in preparation for tomorrow's discussion is, in my life, how do I currently determine what is true compared to talking to God about it? What do I currently do to work out what is true? And then when I do know what is right or wrong, do I act lovingly when I do it, when I work it out? Or do I just continue to act in the same way as I used to? Do I change, or do I continue to act in an unloving manner? So what's going to determine when you hear truth as to whether you act lovingly or not is this very, very important quality: humility. And so tomorrow we need to have a chat about humility and what it means and how it feels like, and like how does it feel to actually be humble inside of yourself. Because without that discussion about humility, can you see you can hear the truth and do nothing about it? Like, you can completely dismiss it, right? But when you're humble, you go, there's the truth, and I need to do something about this truth. Like, I have a personal responsibility to do something about it. Yeah? And once you realize that, then, of course, the need to make loving decisions becomes much greater in your life. Yeah? So the question then becomes, am I humble? Really humble? Can I see truth, and then when I see it, do I act lovingly or do I act in fear? You know, when I see the truth and I see, there's a good thing to do here, do I go and do it, or do I go, no, I won't do that? There are going to be literally thousands of things in your life if you choose to become at one with God in your future. From where you are now, there's literally going to be thousands of things in your life you're going to have to change. That will determine how fast you change them. So notice I said how fast you change them, not whether you change them. All of you are going to be forced to change at some point. You know why I know that? Because sooner or later, either all of you will end up here in the sixth sphere of the spirit world, or above here. That's where everybody who's ever lived ends up. You're going to end up there sooner or later, right? How humble you are will determine how quickly you end up there, in one place or the other. It makes sense to you? You're going to end up there sooner or later, no matter what you believe. You can not even believe in God, and you'll end up here sooner or later, right? You will end up there for certain. God's designed this universe in such a clever way that sooner or later you're going to want to progress. That's how it works. And you want to be less sinful, more sin-free. That's how it works. So you'll end up here sooner or later. Even if no God in your life, you'll end up there sooner or later. And by the way, people there are like extremely happy to compare to anybody who's on earth. So that's where you end up as your minimum. Sooner or later, no matter how long it takes. The question is going to become, how long?